Rise of the European Emperor by Taishan Laonyo.
Chapter 161, Poisoning the Pope. In the living area behind the Basilica of St. John Lateran in Rome, Italy, the mother church of the Christian world, Pope Alexander VI was chatting with his favorite son, Caesar Borgia. It was mid-August and the weather in Rome was still very hot. Therefore, both father and son wore thinner silk clothes. On the side, some servants were still fanning the two big guys. At the same time, there were ice cubes stored last year around the room to cool down. As one of the richest families in Italy, the Borgia family naturally has money to be extravagant. Although it is said that when running for the Pope, Alexander VI almost spent all the family's funds. However, after becoming the Pope, Alexander VI made a lot of money. In order to achieve the purpose of making money, Alexander VI, the most shameless pope in history, openly auctioned the position of cardinal, and the highest bidder won. Moreover, the archbishops of the bishoprics in the German region must also pay money to be recognized by the Holy See. Although the appointment of some small bishop states in the German region requires the support of one of the three religious electors, the Archbishop of Cologne, the Archbishop of Mainz and the Archbishop of Trier, even if it is supported, during the period when Alexander VI was the Pope, if you do not pay the Pope tens of thousands of gold coins, the Holy See will not issue you a commission. Therefore, in the German region, the archbishops of the bishop states who took office during the reign of Alexander VI were all unlucky and had to accept the blackmail of Alexander VI. This is still good. In the Roman Curia, those cardinals who are not members of Alexander VI's party are really unlucky. When Alexander VI first came to power a few years ago, he was more restrained. In recent years, Alexander VI has a firm control over the papal states and has begun to mess around. He began to auction the position of bishop through his son Caesar Borgia. After receiving the money, what should he do if he finds that the number of bishops is full? No problem, my Borgia family has a magical chronic poison cantrera. Tell me, which diocese do you like the position of cardinal? Ah, that won't work, he's one of my own. Well, this diocese, no problem, wait a few days. In a blink of an eye, Pope Alexander VI himself or Caesar Borgia will invite the bishop to dinner and drink. Then, a few days later, the cardinal of a certain diocese, who was doing well, was poisoned to death. After that, Caesar Borgia will tell the person who paid the money before with a kind face, okay, you can go to take office. Moreover, the family property of the unlucky bishop who was poisoned will be robbed by Caesar Borgia's men. After all, Caesar Borgia is the highest military commander of the papal states. Who in Rome can stand up to him? Those cardinals are nominally single. Even if they have illegitimate children, dare they jump out to compete for their father's inheritance? Whoever jumps out will be killed by Caesar Borgia. Even the descendants of the cardinal's original family cannot compete with the robbers under Caesar Borgia, unless they want to die. The most exaggerated one was a cardinal named Ferrari. After he was poisoned, Caesar Borgia led people to obtain a huge fortune of 500,000 ducats from the residence of the dead Bishop Ferrari. Another time, a cardinal named Michieci was probably poisoned by the Borgia father and son. What was excessive was that just after Bishop Michieci died and his body had not yet cooled down, a large number of Caesar Borgia's men rushed directly into Bishop Michieci's residence and looted property worth 150,000 ducats. In fact, the Borgia father and son had created an extremely terrifying atmosphere in the city of Rome. It made those cardinals, except for the running dogs of Alexander VI, feel insecure. Even the running dogs of Alexander VI would feel scared if they had more property, for fear that they would be remembered by the Borgia father and son. Now, in the city of Rome, the Pope's invitation to dinner has become one of the most feared things for cardinals and nobles. Because, a week after eating, you may be poisoned and die. Then, a group of Caesar Borgia's barbaric men will rush to your house to rob your property. It was noon, and the Pope and his son were chatting in the room, and they were surrounded by their most trusted loyal servants. So, when talking, this notorious Pope and his son did not shy away. Caesar, are there any suitable targets recently? Alexander VI took a sip of wine and asked his son. There is one. Recently, I have taken a fancy to Cardinal Cornetto and plan to invite him to drink. This old guy has a large territory and is very wealthy. He is a fat sheep. Inviting someone to drink is to ask for his life. That old guy Cornetto? I don't think you can invite him. How about this, we go to their house in person. Alexander VI thought about it and planned to go in person. Cornetto is a very senior figure in the Roman College of Cardinals. Caesar Borgia's face is not enough, unless he uses force. If Alexander VI came in person, Bishop Cornetto would have to give him face, whether he wanted to or not. Now, the Roman cardinals no longer dared to eat the meal invited by the Pope and his son. In desperation, the Borgia father and son planned to visit the door in person, and then let their servants wait for an opportunity to poison the other party's wine. The next morning, Alexander VI brought his son Caesar Borgia to visit Cardinal Cornito and went to the bishop's castle in Rome. Because it was too hot, after entering Bishop Cornito's castle, Alexander VI quickly ordered his loyal servant to find water. "Paul, go find us some water quickly, this damn weather is so hot." Alexander VI wiped his sweat and ordered. On the side, a man named Paul in his early 30s with a simple and honest look quickly responded and went to find water. In the kitchen of the castle, Paul, who looked simple and honest, found 2 large bowls filled with cool well water. But before bringing the 2 bowls of well water to the living room, while no one was paying attention, Paul quickly took out a packet of white, tasteless powder from his pocket, put it into the 2 bowls of water, and stirred it. After this white powder was poured into the water, it quickly dissolved in the water, without changing the color of the water, nor emitting any smell. Even if you taste it with your mouth, there is no peculiar smell. Of course, those who know the truth will not commit suicide like this. After calming down his nervous mood, this loyal servant, named Paul, restored his honest and expressionless face, brought the 2 bowls of well water with additives to the living room, and personally handed them to Alexander VI and his son. Alexander VI and his son did not doubt him and drank it directly. Then, wait for the host, Cardinal Cornetto, to appear. Unfortunately, Cardinal Cornetto was very cautious and refused to drink on the grounds that he was sick. When entertaining Alexander VI and his son, Bishop Cornetto kept persuading Alexander VI and his son to eat and drink, but he himself did not eat much, only a little bread. Alexander VI and his son were immediately dumbfounded. How could they poison the other party if they did not drink? Did they have to sprinkle the poison, Cantrera, on the other party's bread? Wouldn't the other party see it directly? In desperation, Alexander VI and his son went back depressed. However, they did not know that although they failed to poison Cardinal Cornetto, they themselves were successfully poisoned. Now, they only had to wait for the poison to explode in a week. Chapter 162 Lampedusa Island. In the southern Mediterranean, on Lampedusa Island, Archbishop Rovere and his dozens of followers, as well as the 2,000 troops led by Schwartz, have arrived. After Schwartz arrived, Steindorf, who was originally stationed on the island, and the original 5,000 troops will accept Schwartz's leadership. At the same time, outside the city of Rome, an unknown small fishing village, with the investment of Marin, actually built several long-bridged docks that can berth more than a dozen ships at the same time. Even this small fishing village was bought by Marin's men in the name of an Italian businessman. The significance of the existence of this dock is to allow Marin's army to land. Although it is still some distance away from Rome, as long as it lands here, it will not take long to reach Rome, and it can arrive in a few hours. As for whether it can enter the city of Rome, this is not a problem. Because, under Kohler's arrangement, an Italian named Lamini had rented a large yard near the north gate of Rome, and piled up a lot of rye there in the name of a large grain merchant. In addition, in the name of recruiting coolies, 100 elite Frisian soldiers were allowed in, all living in the large courtyard. At the same time, a batch of weapons and armor were secretly transported into the city and hidden in the basement of the large courtyard. Once Schwartz led the army to the north gate, he only needed to take out 2 double-bang firecrackers and light them as a signal. The 100 elite Frisian soldiers in the yard would quickly board the armor, take shields and daggers, attack the city gate, open the city gate, and let the army into the city. These days, Archbishop Rovere has been a little uneasy. Because, according to the agreement, the time to poison Alexander VI has come. Archbishop Rovere was a little nervous, because this was related to whether he could become the Pope. "Archbishop, what's wrong with you?" Schwartz asked with concern. As a confidant of Marin, Schwartz certainly knew that his mistress Angela was the daughter of the Archbishop in front of him, not the daughter of Knight Nelson. Therefore, he respected Archbishop Rovere very much. Moreover, if this operation is successful, the Archbishop in front of him may become the most honorable Pope in Europe, so he naturally dare not neglect it. Alas, I don't know whether the matter in Rome will succeed. Archbishop Rovere was a little worried. In the past few years, living in East Frisia, he learned German and had no problem communicating with Schwartz. "Of course it will succeed, I believe in you," Schwartz said confidently. In his eyes, his young master Marin is omnipotent. "If that vicious Pope dies, will your army have no problem entering Rome?" Archbishop Rovere asked worriedly. "Of course, no problem. We bought a small fishing village 20 kilometers northwest of Rome and built several long bridges and docks. Once the army sets out, we can dock and land in that small fishing village with more than a dozen ships. With 7,000 troops, landing is fast. What about attacking Rome? Rome is a big, solid city. Someone has already prepared to respond in the city. As long as we send out a signal, they will attack the city gates, seize the city gates, and open the city gates to welcome our army into the city. The 2,000 defenders in the city are no match for our 7,000 veterans. Schwartz said confidently. Moreover, German mercenaries have always looked down on Italian mercenaries who only know how to drink and pick up girls. That's good, that's good. Archbishop Rovere was finally relieved. By the way, Archbishop, after your people succeed in poisoning, notify us, is that okay? Schwartz was also worried that Archbishop Rovere's people would fail. Because, if the news of Alexander VI's death was not spread in time, and by the time the cardinals in Rome elected a new pope, then the opportunity would have been lost, and Archbishop Rovere would have no need to go to Rome. It was impossible for Schwartz to publicly kill the new pope. Even those powerful emperors of the Holy Roman Empire who played the game of marching into Rome did not dare to kill the hostile pope. No problem, the outbreak period of Cantrera is about 7 days. As long as the poison is given, my men lurking in the Basilica of St. John Lateran will definitely leave marks at the relevant locations the next day. Kohler's people will send people to check this out, and there will be no problem. Kohler arranged to send people to sneak into Rome and to contact Archbishop Rovere's men. As for Schwartz, he was mainly responsible for leading the troops to march into Rome. In fact, while Archbishop Rovere was chatting with Schwartz, Paul, who had successfully poisoned yesterday, went out early in the morning and came to the vegetable market in Rome in the name of purchasing. He drew a few dollar symbols on a bridge pier with chalk. No one knew what this symbol meant in this era, so it was naturally created by Marin. In later generations, everyone knew it. Because it was the code for the US dollar. As long as Kohler's people saw this mark, they would naturally understand what it meant. Sure enough, at noon, Kohler's men saw several such marks here. Then, this person immediately rushed back to the courtyard near the north gate. Not long after, a man and a horse came out of the courtyard and hurried out of the city. That afternoon, in a small fishing village 20 kilometers northwest of Rome, 2 speedboats set off one after another and headed straight for Lampedusa Island. Rome to Lampedusa Island is about 800 kilometers away. It will take several days for the speedboat to arrive here. After the speedboat arrived, Schwartz had to organize the army to board the ship and then arrive at the small fishing village northwest of Rome. This back and forth, by the time Schwartz's army landed, I'm afraid Alexander VI had been dead for a few days. Of course, after Alexander VI's death, he would not succeed to the throne in front of the coffin like the hereditary aristocrats. Because the pope needs to be elected, which takes a lot of time. Therefore, after the army arrives, even if it is a few days late, it is just in time. However, this is all a story for later. That night, Archbishop Rovere pulled Schwartz to drink together. Schwartz asked worriedly, Archbishop, under what name should our army march into Rome? Didn't we say that we will use the name of Blackwater Mercenaries? But, Archbishop, the timing of our appearance is too coincidental. Alexander VI just died, and we appeared outside the city of Rome. This doesn't make sense. Anyone who cares will understand that the death of Alexander VI is related to us. Schwartz's concerns are reasonable. Even if they are Blackwater mercenaries, they should be active in East Frisia, and they should not suddenly run from the North Sea to the Mediterranean. As soon as Alexander VI died, Archbishop Rovere led his army to march into Rome. Even a fool would know that Alexander VI was killed by Archbishop Rovere. Thinking of this, Archbishop Rovere fell into deep thought. He had to think of a plausible reason to explain it to the world. Whether others believe it or not, this explanation must make sense. He thought about it until late at night, and Archbishop Rovere suddenly slapped his thigh, I got it. At this time, Schwartz had already fallen asleep on the table. He was awakened by Archbishop Rovere's shout and hurriedly reached for the hilt of the knife on his waist. After reacting, Schwartz asked depressedly, Archbishop, what's the matter? Schwartz couldn't lose his temper with his master's father-in-law. I found a suitable excuse. Oh. Tell me about it. Schwartz immediately became interested. Didn't Maximilian I confer the title of Duke of Egypt on your count? Schwartz nodded, but who would care about that empty title? That's the point. Since your count has been conferred the title of Duke of Egypt, would you think about recovering Egypt? Recovering Egypt? Schwartz was stunned. Damn, is Egypt so easy to recover? The Mamluk dynasty can easily gather tens of thousands of cavalry, right? I take a few thousand people to recover Egypt? So desperate? Yes, although it is unrealistic, it is a good excuse. Schwartz thought about it, and it was true. Lampedusa Island is indeed on the route to Egypt, not far from Egypt. Moreover, Marin happens to be the Duke of Egypt. It makes sense to say that his army is going to recover Egypt. As for the Mamluk dynasty wanting to attack Egypt with 7,000 people, it sounds like a joke, but who cares? To paraphrase a very shameless statement of his master Marin, whether you believe it or not, I believe it anyway. For Archbishop Rovere and Marin, all they had to do was find a plausible reason. As for whether others believed it or not, did it matter? Did it matter? Did it matter? So, according to Archbishop Rovere's statement, Schwartz was leading an army to conquer the Mamluk dynasty in Egypt on Marin's orders. Suddenly, he met Archbishop Rovere, who was vacationing in the Mediterranean Sea. Under the influence of Archbishop Rovere, Schwartz decisively stopped the expedition to Egypt and instead escorted Archbishop Rovere to Rome to talk to Alexander VI. Unexpectedly, the great Pope Alexander VI had returned to the arms of God. Well, Archbishop Rovere reluctantly participated in the election of Pope. And the inspired General Schwartz stayed by the Archbishop's side and helped disarm the original papal army. Finally, Archbishop Rovere also summed it up in one sentence. This is the fact, whether you believe it or not, I believe it anyway. Chapter 163 Seizing the trade share of the Baltic Sea region. Marin used 60 Kirk sailing ships looted from Denmark to form a shipping company called German Union. After the establishment, Draka, who was responsible for the trade on the Indian route, was appointed as the general manager of the German United Shipping Company. After the establishment of the company, it first set its sights on the trade market in the Baltic Sea region. The trade in the Baltic Sea region is extremely profitable. Although it is only separated from Western Europe by Denmark, the two sides are like two completely different worlds, and the price levels are completely different. Originally, the lucrative market in the Baltic Sea region was divided equally by the two equally powerful forces of the Hanseatic League and the Kalmar League of Denmark. However, because of Marin's intervention, the balance between the two sides was broken. The naval fleet of the once powerful Kalmar League was completely wiped out, and most of the merchant ships were also robbed. Only a small number of merchant ships docked in Norway were spared because they were far away from the war zone. Now, the Øresund Strait, which used to be a major transportation route connecting the North Sea and the Baltic Sea, has been jointly controlled by the fleets of Lübeck and Hamburg. Even the passing taxes were taken care of by the two fleets. In addition, in order to strike at Denmark's maritime power and prevent it from reviving, the fleets of the two countries prohibited Danish merchant ships from passing through, and only allowed fishing boats to pass through. In this way, Denmark completely lost the Baltic market. You know, the former Kalmar Union was so powerful that Lübeck and Denmark would definitely lose in a one-on-one fight. Even if Lübeck and Hamburg united, they would still lose without the participation of Marin's fleet. Therefore, after the Danish maritime power was eliminated, almost half of the market share in the Baltic region was vacated. Now, Lübeck and Hamburg are using hundreds of merchant ships seized from Denmark to recruit sailors, intending to grab the market share left by Denmark. However, things are not that simple. First of all, the two Hanseatic cities of Lübeck and Hamburg are only cities, so the population is limited. Basically, all those who can be pulled into the Hanseatic League in the two cities have been pulled in. Therefore, even if they were each allocated hundreds of merchant ships, it would not be easy to fully staff those merchant ships with sailors. They had to recruit people from other places. In fact, the chambers of commerce in Hamburg that were allocated captured merchant ships extended their black hands to Dithmarschen, which was nominally subject to Marin. Because most of the more than 20,000 people in Dithmarschen were Frisians, and fishermen accounted for a high proportion. It was right to recruit sailors from here. As for Marin himself, he lacked control over the Dithmarschen area. Why? Because the Dithmarschen area was autonomous. Even if Marin promulgated the Sailor Priority Act, which was very beneficial to him, because Marin could not levy taxes in Dithmarschen according to the agreement, this act was invalid for the Dithmarschen area. In recruiting sailors in the Dithmarschen area, Marin had no advantage over Hamburg. Fortunately, he had enough sailors under his command. However, in order to prevent the Frisian fishermen along the coast of the Earldom of Oldenburg and the west coast of the Principality of Schleswig from being poached, although Marin currently does not have enough ships, he has widely publicized the Sailor Priority Act among the Frisian fishermen in these two places, and repeatedly publicized it. The propagandists under Marin told the fishermen that they would not enjoy any benefits as sailors for merchant ships of foreign forces. However, as sailors for Marin's navy or merchant ships under Marin, the family can enjoy many benefits. After publicity, the families of fishermen who can spare young and strong sailors at home naturally choose to serve for Marin's navy in merchant ships. However, due to the limited number of merchant ships, they cannot be recruited for the time being. For this reason, Marin specially invented the method of appointment registration, that is, to let those young fishermen who are willing to serve for themselves register as their own sailors first. Although they cannot be recruited immediately due to the lack of ships, Marin has given some treatment enjoyed by sailors in formal service. For example, salt can be advanced in part for pickling salted fish. When Marin has a ship, he will officially recruit them as sailors, and their families will enjoy all the benefits, including full advance of salt, not unlimited advance, but a reasonable amount declared according to normal demand, and loans to buy large fishing boats. In addition, tax benefits are enjoyed. After this big move was released, the people of Hamburg found that it became extremely difficult to send people to the west coast of the Duchy of Schleswig to recruit sailors. Upon inquiry, they all said that they would rather serve their Lord Marin and wait for his call. The people of Hamburg had no choice but to recruit people elsewhere. Anyway, Germany in this era lacks everything, but there is no shortage of poor people who dare to risk their lives. As for the people of Lübeck, the situation is much better. Because Lübeck is the overlord of the Baltic Sea region and has no conflict with the North Sea. Even if recruiting sailors, Lübeck recruits sailors in the Baltic coastal area of Germany. For example, the eastern coast of the Principality of Holstein, the coast of the Principality of Mecklenburg, and the coast of Pomerania, which are controlled by the family. However, it takes time to recruit enough sailors for hundreds of ships. Marin is different. The young fishermen in East Frisia have basically received simple training in the sailor school. The sailors that can be recruited in Frisia can just fill the vacancies of the 60 ships. If there are more ships, they will have to go to the Jever region, the coast of the Earldom of Oldenburg, and the western coast of the Principality of Schleswig to recruit people. Therefore, although Marin started late. However, because there are few ships and the sailors are well prepared, they can immediately participate in the trade war in the Baltic Sea. Moreover, because of the small number of ships, Lübeck and Hamburg, which have thousands of merchant ships, do not regard Marin as an opponent. So, when Marin's merchant ships passed through the Øresund Strait, they were not embarrassed. Even the transit tax does not have to be paid. Because Marin and they are allies. The two sides agreed again that 60 merchant ships under Marin's name could be tax-free, which was exactly the same as the number of merchant ships of the German United Shipping Company. In fact, before this, Marin also had more than a dozen Kirk sailing ships running trade routes in the Baltic Sea. Because Marin previously owned the route to Königsberg in the Teutonic State and occupied a large share of the salt trade in the Teutonic State. The salt trade is the most profitable trade project in the Baltic Sea, and the three companies are drooling over it. Originally, the Teutonic salt trade and Marin's merchant ships were all flying the Teutonic flag. But now, the situation is different. Because the Øresund Strait is controlled by Lübeck and Hamburg. At this time, it is still necessary to pay taxes to fly the Teutonic flag. However, flying Marin's own flag can be exempted from inspection and tax exemption. Therefore, Marin decisively changed the salt ship to Königsberg in the Teutonic State to fly his own flag. In this way, a lot of transit taxes can be saved. You know, whether it is Denmark or the current Lübeck and Hamburg, they all know that salt ships have extremely high profits. Therefore, when encountering salt ships, the tax is also very harsh. But now because Marin is an ally of the two, he can be exempted from inspection by hanging his own flag, which saves trouble. Moreover, what Lübeck and Hamburg don't know is that before this, when Marin passed by the Grand Duchy of Lithuania, he secretly signed a super salt trade order with Grand Duke Alexander with a profit of up to 800,000 gold coins per year. Now, Marin sent a ship over just to fulfill the original trade agreement. In other words, without Lübeck and Hamburg knowing, Marin had already taken nearly half of the huge share of the salt market of the two major countries of Lithuania and Poland. And now, Lübeck and Hamburg are desperately recruiting sailors and equipping the hundreds of merchant ships snatched from Denmark. What is the purpose? Isn't it to compete for the markets of Lithuania and Poland that were vacated after the demise of Denmark's maritime power? But they don't know that Marin's cunning little brother has quietly snatched nearly half of the most valuable salt trade before the war is over. Moreover, Lithuania and Poland have always been hostile to the Hanseatic League because of the relationship with the Teutonic Knights, an ally of the Hanseatic League. This is why the Danes were able to easily share the world with the Hanseatic League in trade in the Baltic Sea. Mainly, the two most powerful countries in the Baltic Sea are Lithuania and Poland. Of course, since the Grand Duchy of Moscow annexed Novgorod, they are no longer the two strongest, but have become the big three. In this invisible battle for the trade market, Marin has already walked in the front. However, he did not dare to make it public. Because if he made it public, he would certainly be envied by everyone. After all, anyone would be jealous of the super salt trade order with an annual profit of 800,000 gold coins. Fortunately, his partner was Alexander, the Grand Duke of Lithuania and King of Poland, so it was easier to keep it secret. Moreover, the Hanseatic League has always been hostile to Lithuania and Poland. Even if Lübeck and Hamburg found it difficult to open up the markets of the two countries, they would not have any doubts. Because they were used to being hostile to Lithuania and Poland. It was normal for the enemy not to buy their things. As for the trade items of salted fish, bacon, grain, wine, wool, fur, livestock, plant ash, wood, flax, resin, beeswax, and various metal products with lower profits, Marin did not intend to rob them. Because the profits of those trade items were much lower than those of salt trade. Although they looked prosperous, the profits of a few ships of goods were not as great as the profits of half a ship of salt. Moreover, Lübeck and Hamburg each robbed hundreds of Danish merchant ships, so they should be given a chance to show their abilities, right? Besides, Marin still needs the support of the two families politically. Therefore, in addition to keeping a low profile in the salt trade, Marin does not intend to compete with the two families for those trade projects with lower profits. Of course, those trade projects are said to have low profits, which is compared with the salt trade in the Baltic Sea. Compared with the local trade in Western Europe, the profit is still quite high. However, for the sake of safety, Marin still wrote a secret letter to Alexander, the Grand Duke of Lithuania and King of Poland, asking him to release the news that he could obtain the source of salt from the Black Sea region in the south. Some areas of the Ukrainian region of Lithuania are on the Black Sea. Releasing such news would make people speculate, are the Lithuanians connected with Venice, the overlord of the Mediterranean? Maybe the salt in their hands is supplied by Venetian merchants. In this way, Marin can perfectly pick himself out. Even if the Hanseatic League failed to seize the salt share of Lithuania and Poland, it would not doubt itself. After all, they could get the inside story: Grand Duke Alexander had a relationship with the Venetians. But this kind of news could not be verified. Because the relationship between the Hanseatic League and Venice was not harmonious. Moreover, one was the overlord of the Mediterranean in the south of Europe, and the other was the local tyrant in the North Sea and the Baltic Sea in the north of Europe. Local tyrants usually disliked each other. It was good enough if they didn't fight each other. Chapter 164, Someone Wants to Pick Up My Sister. In Germany, although the summer is not as hot as in China, where the temperature is more than 30 degrees from south to north, except for the plateau, due to the marine climate, it is still around 30 degrees. Because it was too stuffy, Marin took Kahn and several bodyguards, dressed in casual clothes, left the palace, and went to the villa complex in the east of the city where the old Hoffman couple lived. This was originally just a villa, but after Marin made Aurich the capital, he bought all the land around the villa in the east of the city, built a large courtyard, built several beautiful villas, and built rockery and pools, etc., to create a large courtyard villa complex combining Chinese and Western characteristics. Originally, Marin invited the old Hoffman couple to live in the palace. However, the stubborn old Hoffman believed that Marin was the founding monarch. Since he was not the founding monarch, he should not live in the palace. So, old Hoffman, with Mrs. Mary and 3 underage children, lived in the villa in the east of the city. For an ordinary family, a middle-aged couple with 3 children would naturally be enough to live. However, the old Hoffman couple is different. Their identities are sensitive and they need security personnel. So, Marin bought all the houses around the villa in the east of the city and demolished them. Then, a small wall similar to a dock was built around the villa in the east of the city. This kind of wall can be used for guards to stand on, which has a certain defensive function to ensure the safety of the old Hoffman couple. Then, in the compound, Marin also sent people to build several more villas, and built rockery, artificial ponds and pavilions for rest, which are very oriental. Of course, there is also a small lawn for old Hoffman to ride a horse in circles. Marin brought Kahn and others to the front of the compound in the east of the city, and the guards at the gate immediately saluted Marin. Then, Marin went straight in. After all, he was not an outsider and did not need to be notified. Who knew that as soon as he entered the door, he found his sister and in the pavilion in the front yard, surrounded by several little white faces. 3 or 4 young men dressed very showy, like cats in heat, surrounded their sister, vying to be attentive. The one on the left, holding a violin, was stumblingly playing the famous song, composed by Marlin, "He is a Knight, Pirate." The one in the middle on the left, was holding a bouquet of flowers with a smirk on his face, the one in the middle on the right, was holding a gold necklace as thick as a thumb, saying that he would put it on Annie himself, and the one on the right, pretending to be a literary youth, closed his eyes, tilted his head back, and recited Dante's poems loudly. Oh my God! Marlon was immediately furious. These four pigs obviously wanted to take advantage of his sister. This was really something that the uncle could tolerate, but the aunt could not. It's not that Marin forbids others to pursue his sister, the problem is that Annie is only 16 years old and not yet an adult. These four beasts, obviously in their 20s, actually wanted to attack underage girls. Con, throw them out. Marin no longer hesitated and closed the door to let Con go. So, four noble youths were caught by the macho Con, two of them under his arm, and then thrown out of the gate of the compound. Fortunately, Marin knew that they should be his family members, so he didn't let him use heavy hands, but just threw them out. Otherwise, these guys would have lost their arms and legs long ago. Humph, you are trying to get something for nothing and come to my house. You are really courting death. After saying that, Marin raised his head and walked into the yard with a proud face. Marin came to Annie and wanted to accept a few compliments, but he didn't expect. Brother, what are you doing? Why are you treating guests so rudely? Annie asked angrily. I helped you get rid of the flies, and you blame me. Marin was a little confused. I know they are flies, but you are a noble, a great noble. Where is your demeanor? You are so rude. Someone wants to seduce my sister, and I still have to smile at them. TSK. I'm lucky that I didn't break their dog legs. Marin was unhappy now. You will make your sister unable to get married if you do this. And said to Marin speechlessly. I'm not saying that I won't let you get married, but you have to wait until you are 18 years old. Marin has a modern mindset, and those who hit underage girls are definitely bad people. However, the custom of this era is that noble boys get married at the age of 16 or 17, which is very common. Stinky boy, didn't I marry you at the age of 16? At this time, old Hoffman, who came after hearing the news, slapped his face on the spot. Marin touched his nose and thought, if Archbishop Rovere hadn't disagreed and wanted to take Angela away, would he be so anxious to get married? However, he did not say this reason, but said, Father, if a girl gets married before she reaches adulthood, it is easy to get pregnant too early, and it is easy to die. Therefore, although I married Angela when she was 16, I did not sleep with her until she was 18. Otherwise, if a girl gets pregnant too early, it is easy for her to die from dystocia. Because their bodies are not fully developed when they are underage. Old Hoffman thought about it and it was indeed true. However, he still said, having said that, most aristocratic girls get married in their teens, and there are very few who are not married after the age of 20. In this era, it was normal for European aristocrats to get married in their 30s, but it was rare for aristocratic girls to not get married after the age of 20. For example, Queen Anne of France married an agent sent by Maximilian I when she was 15, and then was taken back by Charles VIII to be his wife. Okay, let him get married after she turns 18. Also, don't let those cats and dogs get in touch with Anne. At the very least, let him marry a prince, preferably one with inheritance rights. Marin said domineeringly. Brother, and on the side blushed immediately. Marin looked over and suddenly found that his little sister had grown into a big girl at this time. Perhaps she inherited the beauty of Lady Mary, and also has fair skin and beautiful appearance. Moreover, in the past few years, because Marin insisted on letting his brothers and sisters drink milk, Anne, although only 16 years old, has reached a height of about 1.65 meters. In this era, Anne's height is definitely tall among women. With a delicate face, fair skin, tall figure, and the guidance of Lady Mary, Anne is well-educated and well-mannered. No wonder a bunch of playboys surround her. Alas, the good cabbages in one's own home are going to be taken away by outsiders. It's a loss. Otherwise, let Simon and Albert go to other people's homes to take cabbages. Marin suddenly remembered that Simon was 20 years old this year, and Albert was 18 years old. It was the age to take cabbages. Suddenly, Marin turned around and said viciously to the guards at the gate, listen carefully, from now on, those noble sons who have no inheritance rights and no ability, who want to hang around and get out. The captain of the guards at the gate was stunned, then asked, what about those who have inheritance rights? Or, what about noble sons with better abilities? The one with inheritance rights must be at least the heir to the baron. The heir to the knight should be thrown out directly. The one with better abilities must be the Star of Hope. However, even if they meet the requirements, they must behave themselves. If anyone dares to touch my sister, they will be beaten into pig heads and thrown out. After saying that, Marin raised his head and went in to find Madame Mary to act cute, leaving the father and daughter looking at each other in bewilderment and a group of dumbfounded guards behind. Chapter 165 Kohler's Sadistic Love. After entering the main villa, Marin immediately saw the gentle Lady Mary. I don't know why, but Marin's body is very attached to Lady Mary. As soon as he met Lady Mary, Marin suddenly learned to act cute and coquettish. He is in his 20s, and it is still difficult to change. In fact, Marin in his previous life also wanted to act coquettishly with his mother. However, his mother Lin Li in his previous life was indeed very fierce and often slapped her, which made Marin dare not get close. In this life, since he got used to acting coquettishly with Lady Mary, Marin was actually addicted, as if he wanted to make up for his childhood, abused by his mother Lin Li in his previous life. Seeing Marin, who was already the king of a country, acting cute and coquettish in front of his mother Lady Mary, his sister Annie rolled her eyes. I must have a fake brother, who is still acting cute and coquettish at the age of 25. This girl stopped acting coquettishly at the age of 16. Well, it is very rare to act coquettishly. In fact, Annie really guessed right that his brother was indeed a fake, a time traveler. It's just that the body is real, but the soul is fake. After acting cute and coquettish for a while, Marin mentioned that someone wanted to pick up Anne, and expressed strong indignation. Mrs. Mary also expressed her support. Yes, I know those four dandies, none of them have the right of inheritance. It's okay if they don't have the right of inheritance, but they are also ignorant. The one who likes to play the violin is so bad, and he has the nerve to show off his violin skills in front of Anne. The one who likes to send flowers smiles too obscenely, and he is a bad guy at first glance. As for the one who likes to give people gold jewelry, it really makes me laugh to death. Our family lacks everything, but not gold. Marin nodded fiercely. Isn't it? Has the Hoffman family ever lacked gold? Since Marin returned from Italy, the Hoffman family has always been rich. You want to drive away the treasure of our rich family with a gold necklace? Is your brain kicked by a donkey? And the one who likes to recite poetry is also a fool. He recites poetry in front of girls and even brings cheat sheets. He can't even memorize a poem. With such a brain, he still wants to marry Anne. Little, cheat sheets. Marin was completely Spartan. He had never seen such a weirdo. He even brought cheat sheets when reciting poetry in front of girls. Isn't it obvious that he is telling girls that you are a fool? Someone. Marin was angry. Here. Please give instructions, sir. The chief guard of the compound quickly came over. In the future, if you see those four fools again, you must not let them in. Especially the fool who recites poetry with cheat sheets, you must not let him in. This. Follow the order. Yes. Damn it, you have to bring cheat sheets to recite a love poem. Your IQ. Aren't you trying to lower the IQ level of my Hoffman family? Marin muttered. Mrs. Mary on the side nodded repeatedly after hearing this, agreeing with her son's opinion. In fact, Mrs. Mary looked down on the four young men. Except for being shameless, they were almost useless. However, Mrs. Mary was gentle and embarrassed to chase people away. Old Hoffman, on the other hand, was old-fashioned. As long as the other party did not do anything out of line, he would not chase people away. Moreover, these four idiots were the sons of old Hoffman's old friends, which made old Hoffman even more embarrassed to chase people away. After chatting for a while, Marin suddenly talked about the 5 attendants who followed him at the beginning: Schwartz, Kahn, Saul, Garland and Terra, as well as Kohler, who had been following him as a quartermaster. They followed him around the country 9 years ago, and now they are almost 30 years old. Kahn, Saul, Garland and Terra are all married, but Schwartz and Kohler are still unmarried because they are obsessed with finding a noble lady. Therefore, Marin plans to find time to hold a dance party so that Schwartz, Kohler, and some other officers who like noble ladies can come together to choose their wives. However, just when Marin was talking happily, Kahn, who had been accompanying him, had an expression of wanting to say something but not being able to. What's wrong, Kahn? Marin asked curiously when he saw Kahn's uncomfortable expression. This. Master, Kohler has a girlfriend. Ah. How come I don't know? Who is the girlfriend? Kahn seemed embarrassed to say, and just said, you will understand when you see her, and you also know her. Driven by curiosity, Marin went out decisively and rushed to the courtyard where Kahn and Kohler lived. The place where Kahn and Kohler lived was originally 2 villas next to each other. However, after seeing the courtyard where the old Hoffman couple lived, Kohler liked it very much, so he also built a large courtyard wall outside Kahn and his villa, imitating the villa in the east of the city, and also built a rockery pool and pavilion inside, and the area occupied was not small. Entering the bodyguard mansion, note, bodyguard means guard in German, and it is the surname given by Marin to Con and Kohler. Originally, they were serfs without surnames. Marin saw Kohler sitting in the pavilion with a lifeless expression on his face. Next to Kohler, there was a slightly plump girl sitting, chattering about something. She looked so familiar. Marin saw the slightly plump girl and felt that he had seen her somewhere. That's Lord Geoffrey's daughter Aya. Con explained immediately. What? Aya? Fatty girl? Marin was shocked. Back then, he was pursued by this fat girl. Back then, after Marin occupied East Frisia, Geoffrey saw that Marin was still single, so he thought about introducing his fat daughter Aya to Marin, hoping to become a father-in-law of the emperor. Unfortunately, Aya was too fat. At that time, Aya was only 160 centimeters tall and weighed 160 pounds. How could Marin, a time traveler and a lord, want such a fat girl? Moreover, at that time, Marin already had Angela, a better choice, so he naturally would not choose Aya. But at that time, Aya was very bold in pursuing Marin. As a result, she lost to Angela, who had an unknown origin. However, Aya now seems not to be as heavy as 160 pounds, at most 120, no wonder Marin did not recognize her at the first time, but just felt a little familiar. What surprised Marin was that after losing 30 or 40 pounds of meat, Aya became pretty. No wonder there is a legend that every fat girl is a potential stock. Aya looks much better after losing weight. If Aya was an ugly girl before, now she has reached an above-average level. Of course, the reason why Marin did not choose Aya back then. The main reason was that this girl was not only fat, but also strong and had a domineering personality. If Marin hadn't stopped her, there would have been several times when Aya would have rushed into the palace to beat up her rival Angela. Marin is not a bottom, so how could he be willing to marry such a tough female figure? Even if she lost weight. Does Chloe like to be a bottom? Marin guessed maliciously. By the way, Con, how did Fatty get together with Chloe? Marin was very curious about this question. Anne, who came to play with them, was also quite interested. That's such a sad story. The rough Con actually became literary. Speak human language, yes. Aya is 22 years old and already an old maid. Moreover, Aya is proud and arrogant. She doesn't like any man whose title is lower than that of baron. And my brother Kohler happens to be a baron, which meets Aya's requirements. You know Aya's character. Then, Kohler was entangled. Entangled. Marin was speechless. Can't you find a way to get rid of her? No, the key is that I don't know what method Aya used to make my mother Jenny agree to her marriage with Kohler. Kohler is the most filial to his mother, so he can only put up with it. Ah. Fatty is so scheming. It doesn't seem like it. She actually knows how to follow the mother-in-law's route. Marin was very surprised. But when you think about the fact that Fatty's father is the cunning palace minister Geoffrey, it makes sense. My mother Jenny is very satisfied with Aya's physique, saying that she has a big butt and is easy to give birth. Moreover, she is the daughter of the palace minister, so she is very satisfied. Marin was stunned and looked at Aya. Her butt is as big as a foot basin, and her chest is also quite majestic. It really meets the selection criteria of the working people. At this time, Aya and Kohler also saw Marin, Con and others. Seeing Marin, Aya was also angry. Because she lost 30 or 40 pounds, all for Marin, but unfortunately, she still lost to Angela. So, when she saw Marin, Aya had no respect at all, but shouted angrily, "What are you looking at? Haven't you seen a beautiful woman?" Marin and everyone suddenly didn't know what to say. Aya, how can you talk to the young master? He is the king, and we are the ministers. Kohler, who was originally half dead, was dissatisfied. Disrespecting Marin touched his bottom line. I'm just angry. What surprised Marin and others was that Aya, who was always as tough as a man, was actually persuaded by Kohler's words. This girl would fight at the slightest disagreement. Marin was sure that if it came to fighting, Kohler might not be Aya's opponent. Fatty, have you changed your personality? You're pretending to be gentle. Marin said with a click of his tongue. Suddenly, the powder keg was ignited again. You're the Fatty, my name is Aya. The gentle and virtuous noble lady Aya. Seeing Marin, this Chen shimmy, Fatty was immediately unhappy. Ahem, Kohler coughed, and the violent Fatty stopped talking. Ahem. Marin also coughed. He was frightened by the adjective, gentle and virtuous, that Fatty used to describe her. Look at Aya's strong figure, and then look at Kohler's small body. Marin patted Kohler's shoulder sympathetically. Hey, Kohler, take care of yourself, I hope you won't be abused by this woman in the future. Kohler's face became even more bitter. Originally, he looked down on Panya. Unfortunately, his mother likes Panya very much. Panya can eat, and my mother actually said that being able to eat is a blessing. Panya is strong, and my mother likes her more, because she can do work. Kohler really wanted to cry at this time. I am a dignified baronet, with a group of serfs under my name, do I need a wife to work? Unfortunately, he is too filial, and under the coercion of his mother, he can only be with Aya. Hey, sadomasochism. Before leaving, looking at the weird combination of thin Kohler and strong Panya, Marin couldn't help but worry. Panya is so fierce, will Kohler die young? Chapter 166, The Death of the Pope. On August 19, 1503, 6 days after Pope Alexander VI and his son Caesar Borgia were poisoned, and the day before the slow poison, Cantrera, took effect, Paul, a hidden man planted by Archbishop Rovere next to Alexander VI, poisoned again. However, this time, Paul did not use a lethal poison, but a laxative. The reason for using a laxative is very particular. Tomorrow, August 20th, is when Cantrera will take effect. But Cantrera is not without an antidote. As long as you find a live mule, cut open the mule's abdomen, and then get in and soak in the mule's hot blood, you can save your life. However, Paul gave Alexander VI a laxative 1 day in advance, which would cause the 72-year-old pope to be exhausted and his legs and feet to become weak. By tomorrow, when the Cantrera poison takes effect, the old pope may not have the strength to climb into the mule's belly. So, Archbishop Rovere is really a cunning old driver. He did not directly poison Pope Alexander VI. Because that would have too bad an impact. The Pope is the spiritual leader of most European countries. If he is poisoned, people will easily suspect Archbishop Rovere, the mortal enemy of Alexander VI. Unless Archbishop Rovere does not want to run for the Pope and wants to poison Alexander VI, he must not use ordinary poison to poison the Pope. If it is seen by others, it will definitely shock the whole of Europe. However, using the Borgia family's unique slow-acting poison, Cantrera, is a very clever idea. Alexander VI used Cantrera to poison many cardinals, which has created a terrifying atmosphere in Rome. If Alexander VI was poisoned by Cantrera, I'm afraid everyone would applaud. Moreover, since Alexander VI was poisoned by his own unique poison, no one would doubt Archbishop Rovere. Because the Cantrera poison of the Borgia family had never been circulated before, and was only in the hands of a few core members of the Borgia family. Alexander VI was poisoned by Cantrera, and it could be completely publicized afterwards as Alexander VI accidentally took his own poison, which led to his death. Paul gave Alexander VI the laxative the day before the poisoning, which was also inconspicuous. Because food and everyone are easy to spoil in summer, isn't it normal to have a stomachache? As long as he had diarrhea a few times, even if he took medicine to cure it, Alexander VI, at the age of 72, would be weak for a few days. When the poison took effect the next day, he had no strength to crawl into the mule's belly. Originally, Paul wanted to give Caesar Borgia a laxative as well. Unfortunately, Caesar Borgia ran out to play that day. It is said that he went to have sex with his sister Lucrezia Borgia. In this way, Paul could only give Alexander VI a laxative. After giving him the laxative, Paul knew that he was in danger, so he asked for leave under the pretext of going out to purchase. After going out, he came to a shabby house in a remote alley, changed his clothes and put on makeup through the tunnel under the shabby house, and ran away directly. However, before leaving the Basilica of St. John Lateran, Paul, using his status as a steward who was deeply trusted by Alexander VI, ran to the stable behind the cathedral and arranged for people to send out the 3 mules in the stable to carry goods. Sure enough, after being given the laxative, Pope Alexander VI had diarrhea several times, and his 72-year-old aging body suddenly became weak. Then, the quack doctor of the Roman Curia gave the Pope a piece of opium as an anti-diarrhea medicine. Sure enough, by the evening, the diarrhea stopped. A small amount of opium tablets can indeed treat diarrhea, and in medieval Europe, opium tablets were considered a miracle drug. At that time, European doctors treated people by either bleeding or prescribing opium tablets. However, the Pope, who was already weak from diarrhea, had 3 poisons in his body at the same time, the poison of laxatives, the poison of opium tablets, and the most terrifying Cantrera. The next day, Alexander VI had no strength to get up and could only lie in bed to recuperate. But in the afternoon, the Pope suddenly began to have severe abdominal pain and rolled on the bed in pain. Then, the Pope's confidants and followers were horrified to find that Alexander VI slowly had difficulty swallowing, his face turned the color of mulberry, the skin around his body began to fall off, the fat on his stomach turned into water, and his intestines poured out. Cantrera. The Borgia family members of the Pope's confidants screamed. As members of the Borgia family, they knew that the Pope was poisoned by the legendary poison of the family, Cantrera. Quick, bring a mule. However, the servants of the Borgia family were horrified to find that the stable behind the Basilica of St. John Lateran, which originally had 3 mules, could not find a single mule today. When they asked the reason, it turned out that Paul, the steward trusted by the Pope yesterday, was sent out of the city to transport goods. The people of the Borgia family knew at this time that Paul was a spy. However, at this time, it was no longer important whether Paul was a spy. The important thing was to save the Pope quickly. So, the men left the Basilica of St. John Lateran and went out to find mules. But when they asked, these people were a little dumbfounded. It turned out that 2 months ago, a chamber of commerce from France suddenly came to Rome, not the chamber of commerce near the North Gate. This chamber of commerce had a quirk, it liked to buy mules. Unknowingly, all the mules near the Basilica of St. John Lateran were bought by this foreign chamber of commerce. This made the servants of the Borgia family unable to find mules for a while. When a servant finally led a mule back to the Basilica of St. John Lateran in the evening, the unfortunate Pope Alexander VI had already died. His body was already exhausted, and the Cantrera was extremely toxic. After wailing in pain for an afternoon, the old and frail Pope Alexander VI finally couldn't bear it and died tragically. And almost on the same afternoon, Caesar Borgia, who was having an affair with his own sister Lucrezia Borgia in a hidden villa in the countryside outside the eastern suburbs of Rome, also began to feel severe abdominal pain, and his face began to turn mulberry color. Cantrera. Caesar Borgia and Lucrezia Borgia exclaimed together. As core members of the Borgia family, they obviously wouldn't make a mistake. Moreover, Caesar Borgia has seen the reactions of the poison many times. There happened to be a mule in this country villa belonging to Lucrezia Borgia. So, Lucrezia quickly called the guards, brought the mule over, and then cruelly cut open the mule's abdomen. Then, a group of guards went up and held down the wailing and struggling mule. And Caesar Borgia's guards hurriedly stuffed Caesar Borgia into the mule's abdomen. Caesar Borgia was only 27 years old, and was young and strong. In addition, he happened not to be in the Basilica of St. John Lateran yesterday, so Paul did not have the opportunity to give him a laxative. Moreover, because it was stuffed into the mule's abdomen in time, this little devil actually survived. However, Cantrera is very toxic. Although Caesar Borgia survived, his body was also seriously injured. His hair fell out because of the toxicity, and his originally handsome face became distorted because of the toxins. It can be said that Caesar Borgia already looked like a ghost at this time. Moreover, although he survived by chance, Caesar Borgia was temporarily unable to move. He had to recuperate in a country villa for a month before he could walk. Chapter 167. Let's wait and see. After Paul gave Alexander VI a laxative, he quickly passed through a tunnel in a secret base that had been prepared long ago, and disguised himself as a stinking beggar. He took advantage of the fact that the city gate was not closed, and on the afternoon before Pope Alexander VI was poisoned, he sneaked out of the city gate, and then found a horse in an inconspicuous house in the north of the city, and went to the hidden fishing village 20 kilometers northwest of Rome to wait for the arrival of Archbishop Rovere. Paul was a dead man and an outstanding spy trained by the Rovere family. He was placed in the Basilica of St. John Lateran very early. That year, after the death of Archbishop Rovere's uncle Pope Sixtus IV, Rovere manipulated the Roman cardinals and selected Archbishop Rovere's puppet Innocent VIII as pope. During that period, Paul, who was still a teenager, was arranged to enter the corps of the Roman Curia, the Basilica of St. John Lateran after the Rovere family finished spy training. However, when Paul first entered the Basilica of St. John Lateran, he entered as a low-level errand worker. At that time, Archbishop Rovere, who controlled the power of the Holy See, did not reveal any signs of having a relationship with Paul. In this way, Paul's identity was well hidden. Alexander VI became the pope by spending money, and Archbishop Rovere, as his mortal enemy, had to flee Rome, but Paul was left in the Basilica of St. John Lateran as a hidden man, continuing to do odd jobs, and gradually promoted to the head of the handymen of the Basilica of St. John Lateran. When Marin told Archbishop Rovere that he had obtained a small bag of Cantrera, Archbishop Rovere immediately realized that this was a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity. So, he immediately notified Paul through other secret lines in Rome, asking him to get close to Alexander VI and his son, and strive to get access to their food and drink, so as to get the opportunity to poison. After 2 years of hard work, through bribery and other means, Paul finally got close to Alexander VI and got the opportunity to poison. Then, not only did he poison Alexander VI with cantrera, but he also took laxatives the day before the poisoning, making Alexander VI very weak. That's not all. Before escaping, he used his position as Alexander VI's trusted steward to send out the 3 mules in the stable behind the Lateran Cathedral that were always used as antidotes to carry goods. In addition, Marin had previously sent Kohler to arrange a strange chamber of commerce to buy all the mules around the Lateran Cathedral. In this way, as long as the poison took effect, Alexander VI would be dead if he could not be sent into the body of a live mule with its stomach cut open in a short time. After completing the task, Paul escaped from Rome with peace of mind and went to the small fishing village. This small fishing village called Dolomia has a very special terrain. Because, except for the direction facing the sea, the other 3 directions are all mountains. The only way to the outside of the fishing village is a small valley in the north. At night, the villagers of Dolomia will directly close the wooden door at the valley entrance. In this way, outsiders cannot get in. At the beginning, Marin's men saw the advantage of this small fishing village being closed all around. Even if something happened here, it would be difficult for the outside world to know. Marin arranged an Italian subordinate to pretend to be a local tycoon, bought most of the land in this small fishing village, and built several long bridge docks at the fishing village dock, saying that he would build it into a trading port to fool the fishermen. In fact, this place was prepared for the landing of the army interfering in Rome, on the 4th day after Pope Alexander VI was poisoned, that is, on August 24, the fleet coming from Lampedusa Island finally landed at the long bridge dock in the fishing village of Dolomia under the cover of night. During the voyage, these paddle boats bought from Italy were flying the flag of the Republic of Genoa, the most developed commercial ship in Italy west of the Apennine Peninsula. In this way, no one paid attention. Because, the scale of dozens of ships is indeed only available in the waters west of the Apennine Peninsula. However, the steady Archbishop Rovere still divided the fleet into 3 batches. On the evening of the 24th, it quietly docked at the long bridge dock in the village of Dolomia. 7,000 troops landed in strict discipline and in a strict formation. After landing, dozens of fishermen in the village were temporarily controlled. At the same time, the only big wooden door leading to the valley outside the village was also closed during the day. The reason for choosing this place is that it is closed enough. As long as the only exit, the valley gate, is closed, the outside world will not know what happened here. Paul has been waiting here for a long time and met his master, Archbishop Rovere. What? Caesar Borgia is not in Rome? Hearing this news, Archbishop Rovere frowned immediately. You know, although Caesar Borgia is young, he is the highest military commander of the Papal States. If he cannot be captured, if this guy calls on the army of the Papal States to resist, then the Papal States will be in chaos. Yes, master, I didn't expect that Caesar Borgia would suddenly leave Rome the day before the poison took effect. I guess he went to meet his secret lover. With the arrogance of this kid, does he need to be sneaky to meet his lover? Archbishop Rovere was a little surprised. Can he not be sneaky? The person Caesar Borgia was having a tryst with was his sister Lucrezia Borgia. Whether in China or Europe, this matter is despised by everyone. So, he could only run to the country villa and do it quietly. This. I don't really understand. This guy is sleeping with married women, and he has always been blatant. Paul has always been with Alexander VI, so he naturally doesn't know about the affair between Caesar Borgia and his sister Lucrezia Borgia. If it were Caesar Borgia's entourage, they would know this very well. If this guy is not here, it will be troublesome. But if we wait until he returns to the city to take action, I'm afraid the cardinals will have already chosen the pope. Archbishop Rovere said depressedly. Master, I don't think so. Paul said confidently. Oh, why? Archbishop Rovere was a little curious. You know, after Innocent VIII died, Alexander VI was elected as pope within 17 days, Innocent VIII died on July 25, and Alexander VI was elected on August 11. Archbishop Rovere was afraid that by the time Caesar Borgia returned to the city, the College of Cardinals would have elected a new pope. Master, the reason why Alexander VI was elected as pope within a dozen days was because Alexander VI spent all the money of the Borgia family. He used it to bribe his main opponent Ascario Sforza to give up the competition. Alexander VI used a mule team loaded with gold bars to head towards Bishop Sforza's mansion. You mean? Archbishop Rovere was a smart man and soon understood something. Yes, master. In the past 2 years, several wealthy cardinals in the Roman Curia have been poisoned by Alexander VI. Right now, there is no cardinal in the Roman Curia who has enough financial resources to bribe the College of Cardinals. Paul said confidently. Archbishop Rovere also nodded. Indeed, after the sudden death of Alexander VI, the Holy See was not well prepared. Unlike Innocent VIII who died of normal illness, when he was terminally ill, Alexander VI had actually begun to bribe and canvass for votes. Alexander VI died suddenly, and the bishops of the College of Cardinals in Rome were a little unprepared, so naturally no one was prepared in advance. In addition, at this time, there was no candidate in the College of Cardinals of the Holy See who had enough financial resources to bribe the entire College of Cardinals. In a short period of time, the College of Cardinals could not elect a new pope. Therefore, Archbishop Rovere thought that it would be better to wait a few more days. If Caesar Borgia was captured once and for all, there would be no problem. You know, the entire army of the Papal States is under the control of Caesar Borgia. If Caesar Borgia is not captured, even if Rome is captured, other cities in the Papal States will still be under the control of the Papal States army under the control of Caesar Borgia. In this way, even if Archbishop Rovere is elected as pope, he will face the risk of civil war if he wants to fully control the Papal States. So, Archbishop Rovere thought about it and said, then let's wait and see. After that, Archbishop Rovere quickly arranged a few followers, put on makeup, and went to several gates of Rome to observe carefully. Once they found that Caesar Borgia had returned to Rome, they would immediately come to Dolomia village to report to Archbishop Rovere. Chapter 168 Leaking Secrets and Running Away. In a country villa in the eastern suburbs of Rome, although Caesar Borgia saved his life, he was also tormented by the overbearing Cantrera poison and lost all his hair, and his face became as terrifying as a demon. Moreover, Caesar Borgia lay in bed for 3 whole days before he had the strength to speak. After being able to speak, Caesar Borgia immediately called his servants, "Quick, go back to Rome and see how my father is doing." At this time, Caesar Borgia's eyes were full of fear. He suddenly thought that he was poisoned by Cantrera, and whether his father was also. He didn't dare to think about it anymore. The reason why the Borgia family has the current glory is entirely because his father became the pope. If his father died, even if he survived, he would have a hard time. Unless, he can support Innocent VIII as a puppet after the death of his uncle Pope Sixtus IV, like Archbishop Rovere, the mortal enemy of the Borgia family, and continue to monopolize the power of the Holy See. Moreover, this path seems to be very feasible. Because Caesar Borgia now controls all the armies of the Papal States. This goal can be achieved by forcing the cardinals to submit by force. So, after Caesar Borgia woke up, he immediately sent his men back to Rome to inquire about the news. At night, Caesar Borgia received news that made him despair. His father, Alexander VI, could not resist the toxicity of Cantrera and had died. Fortunately, except for a small number of officers who were wooed by some cardinals, most of the officers in the army in Rome still obeyed Caesar Borgia's orders. Because these people were promoted by Caesar Borgia. The original old officers were either killed or expelled by Caesar Borgia. After learning of his father's death, the strategic Caesar Borgia made a decisive decision, to find an agent to be the pope, and he would act as the mastermind behind the scenes, like Archbishop Rovere did in the past, secretly controlling the Vatican. Therefore, the next morning, Caesar Borgia continued to send people to Rome to contact those cardinals who were close to the Borgia family and ask them to cooperate with him. However, because the toxicity of Cantrera was too strong, even if Caesar Borgia survived, his body would not be able to recover in a short time. At least, he could not walk freely on the ground for a month. Therefore, he could not return to Rome in time to take command in person. What's worse, the people sent by Caesar Borgia to Rome found out a piece of information that almost scared Caesar Borgia on the way back. It turned out that on the 4th day after the death of Alexander VI, Archbishop Rovere sent his confidants to lurk outside the gates of Rome to observe whether Caesar Borgia would return to the city. Once Caesar Borgia returned to the city, it meant that the net could be closed. At that time, the 7,000 soldiers and horses hidden in the village of Dolomia, 20 kilometers northwest of Rome, could go straight to Rome. But unfortunately, the confidant sent by Archbishop Rovere to the east gate of Rome was accidentally discovered by a confidant of Caesar Borgia who had just returned from Rome to the villa outside the east gate when he was taking over from another person. As two hostile families, the confidants of the two families also knew each other. And the confidant arranged by Archbishop Rovere outside the east gate happened to be known by Caesar Borgia's confidant. So, Caesar's confidant secretly followed Archbishop Rovere's confidant. Behind a wall, Caesar's confidant heard a very important message. Archbishop Rovere hid 7,000 troops in the north of Rome, and would immediately attack the city as soon as Caesar Borgia returned to Rome. Caesar's confidant hurried back to Caesar Borgia and reported the information. Caesar Borgia was shocked and almost peed. Before, he suspected that it was the servants at home who made a mistake and poisoned them, father and son. But now, he has confirmed that this is the work of Archbishop Rovere. Moreover, they have even prepared the army, waiting for him to return to Rome and fall into their trap. 7,000 troops. If it were only 2,000 or 3,000 people, Caesar Borgia would still have confidence. But now, there are only 2,000 soldiers in Rome, and his father is dead, so the morale is at its lowest. There is absolutely no chance of winning against Archbishop Rovere's army at this time. So Caesar Borgia made a quick decision: Lucrezia, pack up your valuables quickly, take your confidants, and run away together. Okay, by the way, should we notify our brother Geoffrey? Geoffrey is their younger brother, and has the same name as the palace of the Duke of East Frisia. I'm afraid it's too late. Geoffrey is in Squillace, and we don't have time to inform him. Moreover, he has little involvement in his father's affairs, and he is a vassal of the French. I don't think Archbishop Rovere will make things difficult for him. Geoffrey Borgia is currently the lord of Squillace and Alberto. Both places are within the territory of the Kingdom of Naples. They belong to the dowry of Geoffrey Borgia when he married Princess Sancha of the Kingdom of Naples from the Aragon family. Of course, the Kingdom of Naples gave these two places to Geoffrey Borgia as territories, and Alexander VI also made corresponding political compensation. Today, the French occupy the northern half of the Kingdom of Naples, which happens to include Squillace and Alberto. Seeing that the French are powerful, and Alexander VI and Louis XII are also allies, Geoffrey Borgia simply surrendered to the French. Most importantly, Geoffrey Borgia has always had a tense relationship with his father, Alexander VI, and Geoffrey has hardly participated in Alexander VI's mess. Caesar Borgia was the absolute protagonist in all the troubles of Alexander VI. As for Lucrezia, she was also involved a lot. Therefore, Caesar Borgia directly planned to run away with his sister. Our property in Rome. Lucrezia was obviously reluctant to part with the property of the Borgia family in the mansion in Rome. Caesar Borgia was also reluctant to part with the astonishing amount of wealth at this moment, but he knew that the mansion of the Borgia family must be under surveillance at this time. Going back to get the money at this time will definitely be delivered to the door. Even if he sent his men, it would not work. As long as he dared to move things out of the mansion, he would definitely be followed and then find himself. If he died, what would be the use of all that wealth? Therefore, Caesar Borgia, a heroic figure, made a direct decision: we will go around the south of the city to the seaside, take a boat to Sicily, and seek the protection of the Kingdom of Aragon. Once, Alexander VI spent 50,000 gold coins to buy a territory from Spain. Even if he couldn't take most of his property this time, Caesar Borgia would never have to worry about food and clothing in the future with that territory. In the end, Caesar Borgia persuaded his sister to empty the valuables in the country villa, and took his entourage to take a detour from the south of Rome, go to the seaside and board a ship to Sicily. But before leaving, Caesar Borgia left a few confidants and asked them to go to other cities in the Papal States to inform the local garrison generals and ask them not to surrender to the new pope first. Caesar Borgia's plan was to use the control of those cities in exchange for the new pope's pardon for himself. Otherwise, if you want him, go and attack. In addition, Caesar Borgia also sent people back to Rome to tell the Roman cardinals one thing: Archbishop Rovere had returned with a large army and was hiding in the north of Rome. Caesar Borgia's move was very powerful, because he knew very well that although there were people of Archbishop Rovere in the current College of Cardinals, after the purge by his father, Alexander VI, there were definitely not many of them, and they only accounted for a small part. Others were not on the same side as Archbishop Rovere. Many people, especially the cardinals of Alexander VI's faction, certainly did not want to see Archbishop Rovere ascend to the position of pope. Caesar Borgia's reminder to the College of Cardinals was actually forcing the College of Cardinals to end their differences as soon as possible, and it would be best to elect a new pope before Archbishop Rovere's army captured Rome. In this way, even if Archbishop Rovere occupied Rome, he would not dare to do anything to the new pope. At most, he could only be a shadow pope, and this could be regarded as the last stumbling block that Caesar Borgia made against his mortal enemy, Archbishop Rovere. Chapter 169, Incidents and Sieges. On August 25, Caesar Borgia was carried by someone, along with his sister Lucrezia, a group of loyal servants and a small amount of property. After putting on makeup, they took a detour from the south of Rome to the west coast. After bribing some fishermen with money, they boarded a fishing boat and headed for Sicily. Caesar was afraid that Archbishop Rovere's men would monitor the merchant ship dock, so when he ran away, he did not dare to find a merchant ship to take, and directly rented a few fishing boats to run away. After he left, the confidants who stayed behind to report the news to Rome quickly entered the city from the south, found several cardinals close to the Borgia family, and told them the information that Archbishop Rovere was hiding in the north of Rome with 7,000 troops. Several cardinals were shocked and hurried to call other cardinals back to discuss countermeasures. The College of Cardinals held a meeting overnight and finally decided to block the city gates, and then hold elections in advance to elect the Pope as soon as possible within 1 or 2 days. In this way, even if Archbishop Rovere's army broke through the city of Rome, it would be useless. Moreover, there are 2,000 defenders in Rome. Although the opponent has more people, they may not lose because they have the support of the city wall. To put it another way, even if Archbishop Rovere's 7,000 troops can finally capture Rome, it will be many days later. By then, the new pope has been elected and ascended the throne. Even if Archbishop Rovere has the courage, he dare not kill the pope. At most, he will stay in Rome with his troops and take control of the power. Although Archbishop Rovere may take control of the power, it is different from becoming the pope. Because he is not in the right name, even if he becomes the mastermind behind the scenes, he is subject to various restrictions. In this way, the bishops of the College of Cardinals still have a certain say, and at most they are at a disadvantage. If Archbishop Rovere becomes pope, it will be different. The pope is legitimate and brought a large army into the city. Then, other cardinals will not have the right to speak in the future. The next morning, the gates of Rome were closed and did not open again. Archbishop Rovere's confidants who were gathering intelligence outside Rome immediately felt something was wrong. So, they immediately reported to Archbishop Rovere in Dolomia village, 20 kilometers away. What? The gates of Rome are not open today? Archbishop Rovere was shocked. He immediately realized that the news had leaked. So, he quickly found Schwartz to discuss countermeasures. Archbishop, let's send troops immediately. But Caesar Borgia hasn't returned to the city yet. Archbishop Rovere hesitated. There is no time, Archbishop. Since the enemy did not open the city gate today, it means that they must have prepared. This is still the lightest. What I am most afraid of is that they will pile up various bricks, stones, and wood in the city gate. If the back of the city gate is full of things, the 100 spies deployed in the city will be useless. Even if they kill all the defenders in the city gate, it will take half a day to move the piled up debris. In that time, the enemy will have reacted and eliminated them. Schwartz has participated in many sieges and is obviously more professional in this regard than Archbishop Rovere. In fact, Schwartz's estimate was correct. The defenders in the city did begin to consider piling up debris in the city gate of the North City Gate. However, the Italian mercenaries were slow to act. When the Roman cardinals ordered the blockade of the city gates, many Italian mercenaries were still lying in their mistresses' beds, and they were not allowed to get up before 10 o'clock. Therefore, the lazy style of the Italian mercenaries delayed the action of piling up debris in the North Gate's gate hole. When several officers arrived at the scene, they also had a dispute over where to get professional raw materials such as bricks and logs for blocking the city gate hole. In this way, the action was delayed again. After Schwartz expressed his concerns, Archbishop Rovere no longer hesitated and directly agreed to send troops immediately. Although he failed to catch the bastard Caesar Borgia, the city was already prepared. If it was delayed again, until the Roman cardinals elected a new pope, it would be over. After all, he was 60 years old, and in this era of underdeveloped medical technology, he would not live for many years. If he failed to become pope this time, he might never have another chance. So, at about 8 o'clock in the morning, the army gathered and immediately marched towards the north gate of Rome. 2 hours later, except for 1,000 artillery and baggage troops, the other 6,000 soldiers of the 7,000-man army had arrived outside the north gate of Rome. At this time, many soldiers responsible for the direction of Rome had just gotten up from the belly of women. At the same time, on the inside of the north gate, several officers loyal to Caesar Borgia were still arguing fiercely about which houses to demolish. After all, if the city gate was to be blocked, it would inevitably be necessary to demolish nearby houses to obtain enough bricks and wood because there was no prior preparation. However, these Italian officers were looking for women everywhere, and there were many houses near the north gate where their mistresses lived. In order to protect the interests of their mistresses, they naturally argued and delayed the time to block the city gate. However, they were not in a hurry. Because the city gate was already closed. Even if the enemy hit the city gate or bombarded the city gate, it would not work in a short time. Generally speaking, they have plenty of time to find materials to block the city gates. However, when Schwartz led 6,000 troops to the north gate of Rome, he did not order them to climb the city wall immediately, but asked the signalman to light a double-bang firecracker to send a signal to the city. Bang bang dash. In the courtyard of the grain merchant, near the north gate of the city, the troops inside actually started to prepare in the morning. Because they also discovered the abnormality of the Roman defenders. Therefore, they had all the soldiers wear plate armor early, pick up swords and shields, and be ready to attack the city gate at any time. Around 10 o'clock, there was a sudden bang bang sound outside the north gate of Rome, and the 100 Frisian soldiers in the courtyard were shocked. They knew that it was their turn to take action. So, 100 soldiers wearing plate armor, holding swords and shields, suddenly rushed out of the courtyard and rushed directly to the north gate of Rome. Several officers of the Roman garrison were still arguing there, and suddenly, they saw hundreds of soldiers wearing plate armor rushing towards the city gate. Except for an officer who reacted quickly and ran away immediately, the other officers were directly hacked to death by the sword and shield soldiers who rushed over. Although the city gate was well prepared, the 40 Italian mercenaries inside were obviously no match for these 100 elite East Frisian soldiers. So, after a short time, the 40 Italian mercenaries were either chopped down or knelt down in fear and surrendered. The defenders on the Roman wall also found something unusual and sent people down to attack the 100 sword and shield soldiers. However, the sword and shield soldiers had good defense and were all wearing full body plate armor. Although the Italian mercenaries who came down from the city wall were more in number, they could not break through the defense line of the sword and shield soldiers in a short time. When the people inside cleared the defenders in the city gate, they immediately opened the thick iron bolt and opened the north gate of Rome with a creaking sound. Then, Schwartz immediately commanded the soldiers to rush in. When breaking through the city gate, the army encountered some trouble. After all, hundreds of Italian mercenaries gathered inside the small city gate. After paying the price of dozens of casualties, relying on the combat effectiveness that was more than one level higher, Schwartz's army successfully rushed into the city and began to divide the Italian defenders who surrounded the city of Rome. There were only 2,000 defenders in Rome, and many of them had just gotten up and had not yet reported to the barracks. How could they be a match? Soon, Schwartz sent troops to control several other city gates to prevent anyone from escaping from other gates. In addition, a troop, led by Archbishop Rovier's confidant, went to the Borgia family's main residence in Rome. The purpose was naturally to rob the Borgia family of the vast wealth that they had accumulated over the years by any means. Chapter 170 Learning the Rogue Tactics from Yuan Datu. Because the matter was of great importance, although the meeting lasted all night, the Roman cardinals gathered in the main hall of the Basilica of St. John Lateran and continued to discuss it fiercely. In fact, the cardinals of the cardinals did not expect to decide on the new pope now. Because, even if Archbishop Rovier's army surrounded Rome, it would take at least many days. If Archbishop Rovier's army failed to capture Rome, and Rome waited for reinforcements, perhaps the Roman Curia would not need to be secretly controlled by Archbishop Rovier. However, the facts gave them a ruthless blow. No. Archbishop Rovier's army has entered the city. At this time, a guard of the cathedral suddenly rushed into the meeting place, causing the cardinals to frown. Don't make up rumors. A cardinal refuted the guard majestically. The other cardinals also agreed with the cardinal's statement. After all, Archbishop Rovier only had 7,000 soldiers and horses, and no matter how powerful he was, it would take several days to capture Rome. But soon after, an officer rushed into the meeting place and shouted in the same voice, it's bad, Bishop Rovier's army is coming. This officer was the only one who escaped when the sword and shield soldiers attacked the north gate of Rome. His name was Eldo. Many cardinals were obviously Eldo's followers, so someone asked, Eldo, what's going on? Archbishop Rovier's men ambushed in the city. Hundreds of them rushed out of the city, attacked the north gate, helped open the gate, and let Archbishop Rovier's army in. How could this happen? What should we do? Yes, what should we do? For a while, most of the cardinals panicked, and only a few cardinals who were close to Archbishop Rovier looked at everyone leisurely, as if they didn't care. Anyway, they were allies of Archbishop Rovier. If Archbishop Rovier became pope, they would also gain power. Why panic? Everyone. Please listen to me. A cardinal named Ericadu suddenly stood up and asked everyone to be quiet. Sure enough, everyone quieted down to see what Cardinal Ericadu wanted to say. Ericadu was a neutral cardinal who belonged to neither the Borgia family camp nor the Rovier family camp. There were quite a few such cardinals. They opposed both Alexander VI and Archbishop Rovier. Because, fundamentally speaking, these two people are the same kind of people, both masters of playing power games. It's just that Alexander VI did something worse, and even if Archbishop Rovere was better than Alexander VI, it wasn't much better. So, in the eyes of the neutrals, Alexander VI and Archbishop Rovere were actually traitors of the Vatican, and neither of them were good people. Therefore, Erikadu was not willing to let Archbishop Rovere become the new pope. So, Erika said, "Everyone, I believe that everyone has experienced the periods of Innocent VIII and Alexander VI. Although Alexander VI, who just died, did more excessive things during these two periods, Archbishop Rovere was not kind during the period of Innocent VIII. They are all corrupt officials who play power games and are not good people." The neutral cardinals agreed with Bishop Erika, but this statement offended the Borgia and Rovere cardinals at the same time. So, everyone started arguing again. Erika motioned for everyone to be quiet and continued, "I think everyone would not want to experience the 10 years of Alexander VI's rule again, right?" Many bishops nodded. In fact, Alexander VI's rule was too horrible. He would poison people if they disagreed with him. So, we must not let Archbishop Rovere become the new pope. So, before his army reaches the Lateran Basilica, let's quickly elect a new pope. In short, we must not let Rovere become the pope. Bishop Elicardo's words were unanimously agreed by the neutral cardinals and the Borgia cardinals. Although the Borgia cardinals wanted to put forward their own people as pope, they knew that neither the neutrals nor the Roveres would agree. Therefore, after weighing the pros and cons, the Borgia decided to temporarily unite with the neutrals and choose the neutral cardinal to become the pope. In this way, even if they did not get the position of pope, they could not let their opponent, the Rovere faction, get the position of pope. So, after some urgent discussions, Bishop Piccolomini, who had always been a good guy, was urgently elected as the new pope under the compromise of all parties, and was given the title of Pius III. However, just after the election, before the cardinals left, Schwartz's army surrounded the Cathedral of St. John in La Grande. Archbishop Rovere, with a group of fully armed soldiers, broke into the La Grande Basilica. However, Bishop Erika looked at Archbishop Rovere with a gloating look and said, "Giuliano, Archbishop Rovere's name, you are a step too late. We have already chosen Bishop Piccolomini as the new pope, called Pius III. Archbishop Rovere was stunned and didn't know what to do for a moment. Now that the overall situation has been decided, he can't just start a massacre and kill all the cardinals present. At this time, Schwartz, who was following Archbishop Rovere, suddenly remembered a story about election that Marin had told him before he came. The protagonist of the story came from the Far East, named Yuan Datu. Oh no, it's Yuan Shirkai. This Mr. Yuan is very resourceful. In an election for the president of Huaxia, the person elected by the parliament was not him. However, Mr. Yuan Datu controlled all the troops and police in the city. So, with his connivance, hundreds of hooligans, some military and police officers mixed in, calling themselves citizens groups, forcibly represented the people and demanded that the parliamentarians re-elect the popular president. The parliamentarians were very dissatisfied with the behavior of these hooligans, but they were all gentlemen and could not beat the hooligans. Moreover, the military and police turned a blind eye to the behavior of the hooligans. Moreover, these hooligans were very cunning. They had no weapons in their hands, but just surrounded the parliament building and did not allow the parliamentarians to leave, claiming that they would not leave until the popular president is elected. So, under the coercion of these hundreds of hooligans, the parliament voted for the second time, and Yuan Datu was still not elected. Then, the hooligans continued to represent the will of the people and did not let the parliamentarians leave. In desperation, in the third vote, the parliamentarians voted for Yuan Datu against their will. That classmate Yuan Datu was elected president as he wished. Obviously, Marin had anticipated that this might happen and had provided a solution. So, Schwartz briefly told this story in German to Archbishop Rovere, and Archbishop Rovere's eyes immediately lit up, so, Archbishop Rovere believed that the election result did not count because he was not present and demanded a new vote. Erika and other neutral cardinals, as well as the Borgia cardinals, all sneered at Archbishop Rovere, "What if we vote again? Our numbers are greater than yours, and it is useless to vote again." Sure enough, in the second vote, Bishop Piccolomini was elected again. However, just when the neutrals and the Borgia thought they had won, hundreds of masses suddenly gathered at the front and back doors of the Basilica of St. John Lateran, claiming to be a citizen group composed of Roman citizens, demanding to observe the election process of the Pope to ensure fairness and justice. These Roman citizens were actually the Rovere faction lurking in the city, and were gangsters hired urgently from the streets of Rome. Moreover, the leaders among them were the followers of Archbishop Rovere. The cardinals present were naturally furious at these people who claimed to be Roman citizens, and ordered the guards to drive these untouchables out of the cathedral. However, just as the guards were about to take action, they were controlled by Schwarz's soldiers and their weapons were taken away. Moreover, the servants and bodyguards of the bishops who were waiting outside the church were also controlled by Schwarz's soldiers. In other words, the cardinals were crying to heaven and earth for no one to help at this time. Archbishop Rovere did not say anything, but crossed his arms and watched from the sidelines. Then, those Roman citizens shouted that they were dissatisfied with the results of this election and believed that this result was not in line with public opinion. The cardinals were dumbfounded. For so many years, the Pope has been elected by us cardinals, when has he ever asked for public opinion? Therefore, the cardinals ignored the shouting Roman citizens and planned to leave directly. After all, they had been in the meeting all night and most of the day, and the cardinals were old and a little overwhelmed. However, they were too naive. Those Roman citizens believed that the College of Cardinals had not elected a pope who was in line with public opinion and blocked the exits, not allowing the cardinals to leave, not even to go to the toilet. There were already several bishops present who wanted to go to the toilet but couldn't, and their faces turned red. At this time, the cardinals finally reacted. If they didn't elect Archbishop Rovere as pope today, they might not be able to leave the Basilica of St. John Lateran. The key is that they were not allowed to go to the toilet or eat. After a long confrontation, one bishop finally couldn't help it and urinated on the spot. Of course, for those cardinals of the Rovere faction, going to the toilet and eating were not a problem. The crowd would automatically make way for them. But other bishops wanted to leave. No way. The two sides confronted each other until dark. At this time, many bishops were holding back their poop, enduring hunger, and wanting to sleep. In the end, some bishops chose to give in, and soon got the opportunity to be accompanied to the toilet. If they didn't give in, they would really poop in their pants. How could they still have the face to stay in Rome? After this, more and more neutral bishops chose to give in, and then received humane treatment. After another vote, Archbishop Rovere was finally elected as the new pope with a high vote, and was honored as Julius II. Then, the unlucky cardinals were finally able to go home. However, before going home, under the friendly persuasion of the Roman citizens, they were forced to put their hands on the Bible and swear in the name of God to stick to their choice today and never change their words afterwards. Moreover, they were all willing to make this choice. Before leaving, they were persuaded to sign a joint statement that said all the signatories were willing to guarantee the fairness and justice of this election with their personal reputations and to bear legal responsibility for it. After seeing those hungry and sleepy cardinals staggering out of the Basilica of St. John Lateran, Archbishop Rovere, who had gotten what he wanted, oh no, it was Pope Julius II, sat on the papal throne and laughed triumphantly.